Good evening and welcome to our daily devotional reading. I hope you had a good Sunday. I did. Let's see if we can avoid or get out of the Sunday blues. I wonder if it's still a thing, probably. As long as people have civilian jobs, I suppose it will be a thing. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe out all your anxieties. Tomorrow you can pick it up again. For the night, just let it go. Just let it go. The Bare Necessity song is in my head now. But I can't remember the exact words, so I can't sing it. Come into this moment, this presence, this here and now. Let the flow of time slow down a little. Let yourself slow down a lot. Be kind to yourself and let yourself be. Just be. That is enough. You don't have to always be performing. Unless Plato says otherwise. Let's read what Plato has to say tonight. Socrates. Leave the unimportant. See, I told you so. And let us bring the really important question into the light of day, which is, what power has this art of rhetoric, and when? Phaedrus, a very great power in public meetings. Socrates, it has, but I should like to know whether you have the same feeling as I have about the I should have looked this up. Rhetoricians, the people who practice rhetoric. To me, there seem to be a great many holes in their web. Phaedrus, give an example. Socrates, I will. Suppose a person to come to your friend Eryximachus, or to his father Achaemenus, and to say to him, I know how to apply drugs which shall have either a heating or a cooling effect, and I can give a vomit and also a purge, and all that sort of thing. And knowing all this as I do, I claim to be a physician and to make physicians by imparting this knowledge to others. What do you suppose that they would say? Phaedrus. They would be sure to ask him whether he knew to whom he would give this medicines, and when, and how much. Socrates. And suppose that he were to reply, "No, I know nothing of that. I expect the patient who consults me to be able to do these things for himself." Phaedrus. They would say in reply that he is a madman or a pedant who fancies that he is a physician, because he has read something in a book, or has stumbled on a prescription or two, although he has no real understanding of the art of medicine. Socrates. And suppose a person were to come to Sophocles and Euripides and say that he knows how to make a very long speech about a small matter, and a very short speech about a great matter, and also a sorrowful speech, and a terrible or threatening speech, or any other kind of speech, and in teaching this fancies that he is teaching the art of tragedy. Phaedrus. They too would surely laugh at him if he fancies that tragedy is anything but the arranging of these elements in a manner which will be suitable to one another and to the whole. Socrates. But I do not suppose that they would be rude or abusive to him. Would they not treat him as a musician, a man who thinks that he is a harmonist because he knows how to pitch the highest and lowest note? Happening to meet such an one, he would not say to him savagely, "Fool, you are mad," but like a musician, in a gentle and harmonious tone of voice, he would answer, "Ah, my good friend, he who would be a harmonist would certainly know this, and yet he may understand nothing of harmony if he has not got beyond your stage of knowledge. For you only know the preliminaries of harmony, and not harmony itself." Oh, that is such a burn. Good burn. Phaedrus. Very true, Socrates. And if Adrastus, the Mellifluous, or Pericles heard of these wonderful arts, brachologies and iconologies, and all the hard names, oh, thank God, they also think it's hard, which we have been endeavoring to draw into the light of day, what would they say, instead of losing temper and applying uncomplimentary epithets, as you and I have been doing, to the authors of such an imaginary art? The superior wisdom would rather censure us as well as them. "Have a little patience, Phaedrus and Socrates," they would say. "You should not be in such a passion with those who, from some want of dialectical skills, are unable to define the nature of rhetoric, and consequently suppose that they have found the art in the preliminary condition of it, and when these have been taught by them to others, fancy that the whole art of rhetoric has been taught by them. But as to using the several instruments of the art effectively, or making the composition a whole, an application of it such as this is, they regard as easy thing which their disciples may make for themselves." Phaedrus. I quite admit, Socrates, that the art of rhetoric, which these men teach and of which they write, is such as you describe. There I agree with you, but I still want to know where and how the art of rhetoric and persuasion is to be acquired. Tell me more, tell me more. Where can I find this art? Socrates, the perfection which is required of the finished orator is, or rather must be, like the perfection of anything else, partly given by nature, but may also be assisted by art. If you have the natural power and add to it knowledge and practice, you will be a distinguished speaker. If you fall short in either of these, you will be to that extent defective. But the art, as far as there is an art, of rhetoric does not lie in the direction of Lysias or Thrasymachus. In what direction, then? I conceive Pericles to have been the most accomplished of rhetoricians. What of that? All the great arts require discussion and high speculation about the truths of nature. Hence come loftiness of thought and completeness of execution. And this, as I conceive, was the quality which, in addition to his natural gifts, Pericles acquired from his intercourse with Anaxagoras, I don't know how to pronounce it, I've heard Folly say it, but I forgot, whom he happened to know. He was thus imbued with a higher philosophy and attained the knowledge of mind, capital M, and of the negative of mind, which were favorite themes of Anaxagoras. And the English usually emphasize the wrong syllables. So it's probably Anaxagoras. And the G, never mind. And applied what suited their purpose to the art of speaking. Explain. Rhetoric is like medicine. How so? Why? Because medicine has to define the nature of the body and rhetoric of the soul, if we would proceed, not empirically, but scientifically. In the one case to impart health and strength by giving medicine and food, in the other to implant the conviction or virtue which you desire, by the right application of words and training. Phaedrus, there, Socrates, I suspect you are right, Socrates. And do you think that you can know the nature of the soul intelligently without knowing the nature of the whole? Phaedrus. How do you English say it? Hippocrates in Afrikaans, and probably in Greek is closer to that. Hippocrates, probably. The Asclepiad says that the nature even of the body can only be understood as a whole. Socrates, yes, friend, and he was right. Still, we ought not to contend with the name of Hippocrates, but to examine and see whether his argument agrees with his conception of the nature. Trust not in the name, but verify the truth. Phaedrus, I agree. Then consider what truth, as well as Hippocrates says about this, or about any other nature, and then consider what truth, as well as Hippocrates doesn't make. Ought we not to consider first whether that which we wish to learn and to teach is a simple and multiform thing? And if simple, then to inquire what power it has of acting or being acted upon in relation to other things. And if multiform, then to number the forms and see first in the case of one of them and then in the case of all of them, what is that power of acting or being acted upon which makes each and all of them to be what they are. Phaedrus, you may very likely be right, Socrates. The method which proceeds without analysis is like the groping of the blind man. Yet surely he who is an artist ought not to admit of a comparison with the blind or deaf. The rhetorician who teaches his pupil to speak scientifically will particularly set forth the nature of that with knowledge. Epistemically, I imagine that is. I didn't look, I'm sorry. Will particularly set forth the nature of that being to which he addresses his speeches, and this I conceive to be the soul. Okay, so he addresses his speeches to the soul. Okay, that's all that says. Certainly. This whole effort is directed to the soul, for in that he seeks to produce conviction. Yes. Then clearly, Thrasymachus or anyone else who teaches rhetoric in earnest will give an exact description of the nature of the soul, which will enable us to see whether she be single and same, or like the body, multiform. That is what we should call showing the nature of the soul. Exactly. He will explain, secondly, the mode in which she acts and is acted upon. True. Thirdly, having classified men and speeches and their kinds and affections, and adapted them to one another, he will tell the reasons of his argument, and show why one soul is persuaded by a particular form of argument and another not. Phaedrus, you have hit upon a very good way. Socrates, yes, that is the true and only way in which any subject can be set forth or treated by rules of art, whether in speaking or writing. But the writers of the present day, at whose feet you have sat, craftily conceal the nature of the soul which they know quite well. Nor until they adopt our method of reading and writing can we admit that they write by rules of art. Phaedrus, what is our method? Socrates, I cannot give you the exact details, but I should like to tell you generally, as far as is in my power, how a man ought to proceed according to the rules of art. Phaedrus, then let me hear. Another cliffhanger. Thus far our scripture of the evening. I hope he doesn't disappoint and just say something like one line and then move on to something else tomorrow. Well, let's be read still. What power has this art of rhetoric, and when? The power of words. Target the soul to impart virtue and conviction by words and training. What makes a man or woman good in an art? Nature, knowledge, and practice. I had to think of that anecdote of some person happened to ask some maestro the directions to the Carnegie Hall, I think, and he asked, how can I get to the Carnegie Hall, something like that, a music famous for classical music hall. And the maestro answered, practice, practice, practice. That's the way to make it on the stage of the greatest theaters. Nature, knowledge, and practice. I love this idea that, yes, your knowledge is necessary, but it's not sufficient. Like, well done, patting someone on the head. Well done. You've got some necessary knowledge. Good job. But it's not quite sufficient to call you whatever it is you're pretending to be. I was thinking when he specified that you should, when he was talking about the medicine man, knowing how to heat bodies, cool them, purge them, feed them, but not knowing when or to whom. I was thinking of something Folly said or wrote recently about advice being shouted out into the void here on YouTube. That's kind of the same thing. People know steps. And most of the time it's people, I think, who are genuinely convinced that what they say will be helpful because it helped them. But you really need to know the specific situations if you want to give good advice. But the power of rhetoric is great. And people don't always realize that not all advice is applicable to them. If the speaker speaks with confidence and that extra flair, which persuades the millions, the multitudes. So I just, because the truths of nature and how it's important to know that, or how Pericles knew that, and that helped him in his rhetoric. That possibly claims that by knowing nature, you know the soul. Maybe because if you know nature, you know the whole. There's one passage which might be the sole passage that Alex doesn't know verbatim, but he always I've heard him twice refer to it, and then saying he doesn't know the exact quote. So I looked it up. The Brief History of Time. It's not the last paragraph, it's the third last paragraph. Even if there is only one possible unified theory, it is just a set of rules and equations. What is it that breathes fire into the equations and makes a universe for them to describe? And I was trying to find a way through science to the truth, through studying nature to the truth, through studying the Shakespearean sonnets to Shakespeare. I didn't give it very much thought. I'll give it some more thought. And yes, science is descriptions solely. But if you pay attention to what things are, to the descriptions of it, if you really look carefully, what is this? Although he always says it doesn't describe what it is, but only what it does. Okay, we can play with that. What does this do? Then you pick up patterns. And I do think there is something in pattern recognition. But maybe that is just human epistemology. That's just how we are programmed. But maybe there is something in the patterns of the universe. But then it comes back exactly to what he says then, that yeah, you won't know Shakespeare from the patterns in the rhythms of the sonnets. Because there's patterns too which you would pick up, possibly. Okay. But what if you start to feel into these patterns? If you read the sonnets, but then you can't only know the grammar, you need to know the meaning of the words and feel the rhythm of the poems. And understand the emotions that they convey. Would you not then come a bit closer to who Shakespeare was? By feeling what he, if not felt, at least conveyed. What would that be? If science is discovering the laws of literacy, what will discovering this emotions conveyed through the meaning, rhythm, sound, because it all adds to the emotion of the sonnets. What would that be? Because you would still not discover Shakespeare, but you would become aligned with Shakespeare, maybe, in a way. And then maybe you can speak from the truth of nature. The smell's amazing. We had, I think I referred previously to the workshop in making our own scents. We had 3 tries. Well, my friends, 2 or well, I didn't pay that much attention to the other people's work, but at least 2 of them got 4 tries because they weren't quite done by the 3rd. 2 experts advising us on how to mix the scents. And then we got some scent, and we can buy it. I'm not very creative when it comes to naming. So the name of my perfume is just simply Lazelle. You can make your own Lazelle if you want. It's equal parts of frankincense, cederhout. Cederhout, what on earth is cederhout in English? Cedar tree. GS3 hexanyl salicylate, French rose, and helonial, equal parts. I can also make some more, or have them make more. This I made with my own hand, but I probably, and of course I smell amazing, but we put on each other's perfume as well, so I smell very mixed. How can we fit the scent into this all? Oh well. I always talk about how important smell is. It smells so good. The thing is, the world is not only a book. I know it's been said that nature is the book in which we can read God. But it is a book with so many different ways to approach it. So many different senses. And maybe if we pay attention with all our senses, all those available to us, and those who have less can use the other ones better, I'm sure. Pay attention. Feel into the poetry that is life. I don't know. I hope you sleep well tonight. And may the spirit of Sophia be with you.